My husband's secret family was living just 20 minutes away from us. I thought I knew everything about him. But when I uncovered his hidden double life, I realized the man I trusted was a complete stranger. I had been married to Daniel for 11 years when the truth finally shattered the illusion of our perfect life. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knew each other. Or at least, that's what I thought. Daniel worked as an architect, always busy with projects that often required him to stay late or travel. I never questioned it. He was reliable, attentive with our 2 kids, and the kind of husband other women envied. But there were moments, fleeting, barely noticeable, when I felt something was off. A strange phone call he silenced too quickly, a business trip that seemed oddly close to home, the scent of a perfume I didn't own lingering on his shirts. I brushed it off, telling myself I was imagining things. After all, Daniel had never given me a reason not to trust him. Then came that Sunday afternoon. I was driving back from the grocery store, the kids in the back seat, when my youngest pointed to a small house on a side street and shouted, "Look, that's Daddy." My heart stuttered. I slowed down, following his finger. And there he was. Daniel. Standing in front of a modest 2-story home, carrying a little girl in his arms. She couldn't have been more than 5. At first, I thought maybe he was visiting a client. But then a woman appeared at the doorway, her hand slipping comfortably around his waist. They looked like a family. A family that was just 20 minutes away from us. I didn't stop the car. My hands were trembling too badly on the wheel, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. My children didn't understand why I suddenly drove past without waving. I told them it wasn't Daddy, just someone who looked like him. But deep down, I already knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. Daniel came home late, kissing me on the forehead like always, acting as if nothing had happened. He smelled faintly of that same perfume. And for the first time in my marriage, I realized my husband wasn't just hiding something, he was living another life altogether. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Daniel was already gone, supposedly off to a client meeting. I stared at his side of the bed, perfectly made, and felt like it belonged to a stranger. My instincts screamed at me to find answers. After dropping the kids at school, I drove back to that same neighborhood. The small house sat quietly on the corner, with flower pots by the door and a bicycle lying in the yard. It looked so ordinary, so normal, like the kind of home Daniel and I had built together. I parked far enough away not to be noticed and watched. Around 10, the woman I had seen yesterday stepped outside. She carried groceries from her car, smiling as the little girl trailed behind her, holding a stuffed bear. And then Daniel appeared again. He wasn't in his usual office clothes. He wore sweatpants, a casual t-shirt, and the easy grin he rarely showed at home anymore. He leaned down, kissed the woman's cheek, and took the bags from her hands as if it were routine. As if this wasn't a betrayal but just another Tuesday. My heart clenched so hard it hurt. I snapped a photo with my phone, my hands shaking. Proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining things, that this wasn't paranoia. Daniel had another family. Not across the country, not hidden by business trips, just 20 minutes away from our front door. Driving away, tears blurred my vision. My mind raced through every memory, every excuse he had ever given. Late nights at the office. Weekend site visits. Suddenly, it all made sense. And yet, nothing made sense at all. That night, he came home on time for dinner. He asked about the kids' homework, helped clear the table, and kissed me goodnight like he always did. And as I lay in bed beside him, forcing my breathing to stay steady, one thought consumed me: how long had he been living this double life? For days I carried the secret like a stone in my chest. I smiled through conversations, packed school lunches, folded laundry, all while my mind replayed that image of Daniel holding a little girl who wasn't ours. I started noticing more cracks. His late-night meetings always ended just before midnight, his phone glued to him like an extension of his hand. When I asked simple questions, he'd grow defensive, snapping at me as if I were accusing him of something. I wasn't even asking about her. Not yet. Finally, I couldn't hold it in. One evening, while he was in the shower, I unlocked his briefcase. Tucked between blueprints and notes was a second phone, cheap, plain, and hidden in an envelope. My hands shook as I powered it on. The screen lit up with messages. "Dinner's ready, love. Emma misses you. Don't be late this time." My vision blurred. Emma. That was the name of the little girl. And there were dozens of photos. Birthday parties, trips to the park, Daniel asleep on their couch with Emma curled up on his chest. He looked happy. Carefree in a way I hadn't seen in years. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, my body trembling. When he came out of the shower, towel around his waist, he kissed me on the cheek. I wanted to scream. To throw the truth in his face. But instead, I smiled, pretending everything was fine. Because deep down, I knew I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed to understand why. How long? And most of all, what this meant for me and our children. That night, I lay awake beside him, my heart pounding. And I promised myself, the next time I went to that house, I wouldn't just be watching from the outside. The following Saturday, I told Daniel I was taking the kids to visit my sister. Instead, I dropped them off at a friend's house and drove straight back to that quiet street. My pulse hammered in my ears as I parked across from the little house. This time, I didn't just sit in the car. I got out and walked. My legs felt heavy, my hands clammy, but I forced myself forward until I stood at the edge of their driveway. Through the open curtains, I could see them, Daniel, the woman, and Emma, gathered around the breakfast table. He was flipping pancakes, wearing the same apron he used at home. Emma giggled, smearing syrup on her face, and the woman leaned in to wipe it with a napkin. Daniel laughed, that warm laugh I hadn't heard in years. It was like watching my life, only replaced. I must have stood there too long because the woman suddenly turned her head toward the window. Our eyes met. Her smile faltered. She whispered something to Daniel. He froze, spatula still in hand, and turned toward me. For a moment, none of us moved. Then he dropped the spatula, rushed to the door, and came outside. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, his face pale. I opened my mouth, but no words came. My throat was tight, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I managed only one sentence. "Who are they, Daniel?" His jaw clenched. He glanced back toward the house, then at me, like a man caught between two burning bridges. Finally, he whispered the words that confirmed everything. "They're my family, too." The world tilted beneath me. My knees threatened to give out. And in that instant, I realized the man I thought I knew had been a stranger all along. I stood frozen on the driveway, the cool morning air burning against my skin. My family. He had said it so casually, as if the words didn't split my entire life in two. "Your family?" I repeated, my voice hoarse. "What about our family, Daniel? Your wife? Your children?" He flinched, glancing nervously toward the doorway where the woman now stood. She pulled Emma closer, shielding her from me, though the little girl's wide eyes peeked curiously around her mother's hip. "Keep your voice down," he muttered, reaching out as if to touch my arm. I jerked back before his hand could make contact. "Don't you dare tell me to be quiet," I snapped, my voice breaking. "How long, Daniel? How long have you been living this double life?" He looked at the ground. His silence was worse than any confession. My stomach twisted violently. 6 years, he finally whispered. Since before Emma was born. 6 years. My heart dropped into a hollow pit. That meant while I was pregnant with our youngest, he was already building another home just 20 minutes away. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I needed to stay standing, to stay strong, even as the betrayal pressed down on me like a crushing weight. The woman called out softly, "Daniel, maybe she should go." Her tone was calm, almost pitying, and it ignited a fury inside me. I turned to her, my voice trembling with rage. "Do you know who I am? I'm his wife. The mother of his children. And you've been playing house with him like none of us existed." Her face drained of color, but she didn't deny it. She just tightened her hold on Emma, as if I were the intruder. And in that moment, I realized, I wasn't just fighting for answers anymore. I was fighting for the truth of my own life. I don't remember walking back to my car. My body moved on autopilot, every step heavy, my breath ragged. When I finally slammed the door shut and gripped the steering wheel, the sobs came, loud, messy, unstoppable. How could he? 6 years. 6 years of birthday parties, holidays, anniversaries, all shared with us, while secretly building a mirror life with them. I pressed my forehead against the wheel, shaking, until the sound of Emma's laugh drifted faintly from the house. I drove away before I completely lost control. That night, Daniel returned home like nothing had happened. He kissed our kids goodnight, sat at the dinner table, and asked about my day. The audacity of it nearly broke me. I stared at him, wondering how he could look so normal, how he could tuck our son into bed knowing he'd just done the same across town. When the kids were asleep, I confronted him in the kitchen. My voice was cold, deliberate. "I know everything, Daniel. I saw you. I saw her. I saw Emma." For a moment, he didn't move. Then he sighed, leaning against the counter as though this were just another problem to solve at work. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," he said quietly. "But I couldn't choose. I love both families." Something inside me snapped. "Love? You call this love? You've been lying to me, to our children, to her. You've built a whole life on lies." His eyes flickered with guilt, but there was no true remorse. He spoke calmly, almost rehearsed. "I thought I could keep both. I thought it was better this way. No one had to lose." I stared at him, my hands trembling, and realized the terrifying truth: Daniel didn't see destruction. He saw balance. He believed this was normal, acceptable. And that realization chilled me more than the betrayal itself. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the rhythm of Daniel's breathing beside me unbearable. Every sound he made, every shift of the sheets, was a reminder that I was sharing my bed with a stranger. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep silent. Not for me, and not for my children. I dropped the kids off at school and drove straight to my best friend Clara's house. The moment she opened the door and saw my face, she pulled me inside. I didn't even make it to the couch before breaking down. Between gasps and sobs, I told her everything: the second phone, the little girl, the house 20 minutes away. Clara listened without interrupting, her eyes burning with the fury I couldn't yet summon for myself. "You need to protect yourself," she said firmly. "And the kids. This isn't just betrayal, it's a whole double life. Who knows what else he's hiding?" Her words lit a spark of clarity in me. She was right. This wasn't about waiting for explanations. This was about survival. That afternoon, I went to see a lawyer. My hands shook as I slid the photos and the messages across the desk. The lawyer scanned them quietly, then looked up at me with a mix of sympathy and determination. "You have more than enough grounds," he said. "Infidelity, abandonment of trust, financial deception, this is serious. But you need to be ready. He'll fight." For the first time since that Sunday, I felt something close to strength. Daniel had taken so much from me already. But I still had a choice. I could take back my life before he destroyed it completely. That night, I didn't confront him again. I sat at the dinner table, watching him cut steak for our son, laughing at a joke our daughter made, pretending he was the perfect father. And all I could think was, soon, his charade would crumble. The next week felt like walking through fire with a mask on. Outwardly, nothing had changed: school runs, family dinners, polite smiles at the neighbors. But inside, I was counting down every second until I could finally tear off the mask and end the lie. Daniel carried on as if nothing had happened. He kissed me goodbye in the mornings, came home late from work twice that week, and even suggested a family movie night. The ease with which he floated between two lives made my skin crawl. I spent my nights gathering everything: bank statements, receipts, the second phone when he carelessly left it behind. Each discovery was another cut: transfers to an account I didn't know existed, hotel bookings on nights he swore he was in the office, gifts bought for Emma. My lawyer's folder grew thicker by the day. One evening, as I tucked our daughter into bed, she asked the question that nearly broke me. "Mommy, why does Daddy smell like different shampoo sometimes?" My throat tightened, but I forced a smile. "Sometimes people just use different things," I said softly, kissing her forehead. Inside, though, rage burned. Even our children had begun to notice the cracks. By Friday, my decision was final. I wasn't going to wait for him to confess. I wasn't going to let him hold the power of choice anymore. When Daniel came home that night, humming like he had no care in the world, I slid the divorce papers across the table. His smile faltered, then froze. "What's this?" he asked, his voice low. I met his eyes without flinching. "The end of your double life. Sign it, Daniel. Because you can't have us both." For the first time in years, I watched the color drain from his face. Daniel stared at the papers as if they were written in a foreign language. His hand twitched, then curled into a fist on the table. "You don't mean this," he muttered, shaking his head. "You're angry, but we can work it out. I can fix this." I laughed, but it came out hollow and sharp. "Work it out? You've been living a lie for 6 years, Daniel. You didn't trip and fall into another family, you built it. Brick by brick. While I was home raising our kids, you were raising another life 20 minutes away." His jaw tightened. "I love you. And I love them too." I thought. "Don't you dare say this was for love," I cut him off. My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking. Love doesn't rip a family in two. Love doesn't turn me into a fool in my own home. For the first time, Daniel looked small. His shoulders slumped, his confidence cracked. He tried reaching for my hand, but I pulled it back before his fingers could touch mine. "I won't expose you to the kids," I said coldly. "They'll know the truth eventually, but not from me. That's on you. But I will protect them from this circus you've created. You don't get to shatter them the way you shattered me." Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he pushed the papers back toward me, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need time." I shook my head. "You've had 6 years, Daniel. Time's up." That night, I slept in the guest room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling strangely calm. The storm had already passed. Now it was only the wreckage left to clear. And deep down, I knew the final confrontation hadn't even started yet. The morning of the final break began with silence. Daniel had slept on the couch. I heard him stir before dawn, pacing the living room like a man awaiting his own trial. I brewed coffee slowly, each drip echoing through the kitchen like a countdown. When the kids came down, I plastered on my best smile. They didn't need to carry the weight of what their father had done. After breakfast, I dropped them at school, hugging them tighter than usual. They had no idea that by the time they came home, everything about our family would have changed. When I returned, Daniel was waiting at the kitchen table. He looked older than his 42 years, his hair mussed, his eyes ringed with shadows. The papers lay untouched between us. "You're really going through with this," he said finally. His voice cracked like a boy's, not a man's. "Yes," I replied. One word, steady and sharp as glass. He tried again, desperation creeping into his tone. "We can go to therapy, we can." "No," my voice cut through the air. "You don't get to fix what you chose to destroy. You didn't just cheat, Daniel. You built an entire life with someone else. A child. Memories. Traditions. You split yourself in two, and now you want me to sew the pieces back together? No. I won't." His eyes welled with something between regret and self-pity. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I asked, my hands gripping the edge of the table. "Why didn't you just leave me 6 years ago? Why drag me and our kids through this charade?" He buried his face in his hands. "Because I wanted both." There it was, the truth, ugly and unvarnished. He didn't love me enough to stay, and he didn't love her enough to choose. He wanted to be adored by 2 women, to be the center of 2 worlds, to live in comfort on both sides of the city. I stood up, sliding the papers toward him one last time. "Sign them, Daniel. Or I'll drag every secret into the light. Your colleagues. Her family. The courts. Everyone will know the truth you've been hiding." His hand trembled as he picked up the pen. For a long moment, I thought he'd refuse. But then, with a deep, broken sigh, he scrawled his name at the bottom of the page. The sound of the pen scratching across paper was the sound of freedom. I exhaled, long and steady, as if I'd been holding my breath for 6 years. "It's done," I said quietly. He looked up at me then, eyes hollow. "You'll never forgive me, will you?" I met his gaze with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. "Forgiveness isn't the point. Survival is. I'll build a life for me and the kids without your lies poisoning it. That's all that matters now." When he finally left the house, suitcase in hand, I locked the door behind him. For the first time, the silence didn't feel suffocating. It felt like peace. I wandered through the rooms of our home, touching the walls, the framed photos, the little details of the life I had built, the real life, not the one Daniel invented elsewhere. The ache was still there, raw and deep, but beneath it was something stronger, relief. That evening, I picked up the kids from school. They chattered about their day, oblivious to the storm that had just passed. And as I watched them laugh in the rearview mirror, I made myself a promise. I would give them the kind of life Daniel never could. One built on truth. One where they would never have to question if love was real. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't living in someone else's shadow. I was free. And freedom, I realized, was the most powerful revenge of all.